breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got a tremendous show for you guys. Joining me in segment number 2, we're going to be joined by Jovan Alford. He does great work over at Sporting News. He's been doing a lot of player props this year, so we're going to be diving into how he's been going about those, what he's been finding value on. We're going to be taking a look at a few teams that have overachieved and underachieved thus far this season. Will there be regression with those? And we're also going to be taking a look at a few games that we've got going on for Sunday. So, nice encompassing segment number 2 with Jovan on tap. And then in the final segment, I'm going to give you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Sunday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at GNet_81. Keep in mind, letters EM. Naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Really did not get in any Twitter questions today, but we had a great day of baseball on Saturday, so let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
There were some rough beats on unders in the 9th inning on Saturday. If you had the under in the Nationals versus Arizona Diamondbacks game, yeah, this one was a bad one as the Washington Nationals entered into the 9th inning of their game against the Arizona Diamondbacks down by a count of 6-2. They put up a 5 spot in the 9th inning just to lose it in the 10th, 8-7. The Arizona Diamondbacks get the job done as Mackenzie Gore, good start. He gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. Did allow a home run as it was number 1 of the season for young gun Emmanuel Rivera. And then in the 9th inning, you had Lourdes Gurriel tie the game up with his 3rd home run season off of Kyle Finnegan as Kyle Finnegan did not do his job in the 9th inning. He gave up 2 runs and got 1 out. Prior to that, Mason Thompson has been relatively reliable in this bullpen, gives up 3 runs in a third of an inning. Carl Edwards Jr. gives up a run in an inning, and you had a pair of outs out of the bullpen from Thaddeus Ward. But for Arizona, you got to be feeling really salty if you're Tommy Henry. Was in line for the win, gave up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. From there, Jose Ruiz, Kyle Nelson combined for 2 scoreless innings, and then Scott McGough let it go. He gave up 2 runs in a third of an inning as taking him deep, you had Keibert Ruiz get his 3rd home run season, then Lane Thomas gets his 3rd home run season off of Andrew Chafin, who gave up 3 runs and didn't get a single out. Miguel Castro had to clean up the rest of that 9th inning before the Diamondbacks were able to rally and win. And then this one is just all sorts of bad. The Texas Rangers enter the top of the 9th inning up by a count of 3-0. This is a total that it opened up right around 8.5 to 9 in a lot of spots. I saw some closing 8, saw some closing 8.5. Regardless of what you got, this was terrible. The Rangers scored 7 runs in the 9th inning to put this game over and win by a count of 10-1. Really good start out of Nathan Eovaldi, by the way. 8 scoreless innings. You did have from there a run given up by Yuri Rodriguez in the 9th, but by that time this game was just dead and gone as Brendan Drury, 7th home run season. Reed Detmers, not necessarily his best start, gives up 3 runs over the course of 4 innings. Ryan Tepera, Andrew Wants, they both led to scoreless inning before Tucker Davidson pours lighter fluid on this one. 7 runs surrendered in 2/3 of an inning. It got to the point where they had to put in the backup center fielder Brett Phillips to get the final out of the inning. And then staying out there in the West Coast, you saw the LA Dodgers get the job done against the San Diego Padres by a count of 2-1. Dustin May, a really good start. 6 scoreless innings. Caleb Ferguson, Evan Phillips, they both led to scoreless inning, and Brusardo Graterol gives up a run in an inning. Meanwhile, for the Padres, Blake Snell, not a bad start. He now falls to 1-5. This one was not on him. He gave up 1 hit, and that 1 hit just so happened to fly over the fence as Chris Taylor got his 6th home run of the season, so he gave up 2 runs in 6 innings. From there, Brent Honeywell, Steven Wilson, Tim Hill, they all lend a scoreless inning. You saw the Baltimore Orioles come close but no cigar against the Atlanta Braves 5-4, the Braves get a pair of runs in the 8th inning to be able to get it done, as it was Kevin Pillar who was the hero. He gets home run number 3 of the season. That comes off of Danny Columbi as the starter, and Kyle Bradish also allowed a home run to Marcell Ozuna. 6th home run season for Bradish. Gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings. From there you have Columbi give up that home run at 2/3 of an inning. He allows 1 run. Brian Baker had inherited a runner for him. He went an inning giving up a run, and Cionel Perez 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Meanwhile, for the Baltimore Orioles, just 1 of 9 with men in scoring position as Spencer Strider punched out 10. He was only able to go 5 innings, though, jacked up his pitch count a little bit. So from there, you had Dylan Lee, AJ Minter, Rossi Iglesias all into scoreless inning, but Nick Anderson did allow a pair of runs along the way. A team that has been very good to the over is the Braves, by the way. 21-12-1 to the over thus far this season. And the Orioles now 20 overs, 12 unders, and a push themselves. The best team to the over, though, that would be the Boston Red Sox. They're now 24-10-1 to the over. That's a 70.6% hit rate to the over. 7-4, they take down the Philadelphia Phillies, says Corey Kluber. Not a great start, not a terrible start. Gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, as Bryce Harper got his first home run season off of him. And then you saw Brendan Bernardino serve it up to Trey Turner, down for his 4th of the season, as Bernardino gives up that 1 run in 1 1/3 innings. John Schreiber, Kenley Jansen both on to scoreless inning, and Josh Winkowski, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. And for the Boston Red Sox, no home runs, but they go 5 of 14 with men in scoring position, as Bailey Falter, he lived up to his name. Gave up 5 runs in 3 2/3 innings. You did have Sir Anthony Dominguez, Jeff Hoffman, along with Gregory Soto, all into scoreless inning, as Connor Bogdan did allow 2 runs in his inning of work, and Luis Ortiz 1 1/3 inning scoreless. But yet another over for Boston. Your best under team in all of baseball, that would actually be the New York Yankees, who came up with just enough offense to take down the Tampa Bay Rays. 3-2 the final. The Rays 27-7, still the second best start that we've seen in baseball over the last 80 years. Only that 84 Tigers team had a better start, but for Domingo Germán, gave up a pair of runs early over the course of 5 innings, and then bullpen went to work. Ron Medanaccio, along with Wandy Peralta, combined for 2 scoreless innings. Clay Holmes, Ian Hamilton, they both under scoreless inning for the Yankees. They go just 2 of 10 with men in scoring position, but they were able to strike late, as Drew Rasmussen, he did his part, gave up 2 hits in 5 2/3 innings scoreless. Ryan Thompson gets it out of the bullpen, but it was Jalen Beeks who gave up 1 of those runs in 1 1/3 innings, and then Kevin Kelly, he allows the other 2 2/3 of an inning before you have Javi Guerra, who's going to be the opener for Sunday, by the way, get a scoreless inning of his own. You saw the Colorado Rockies take down the New York Mets by a count of 5-2, as it's been a Colorado Rockies team that has been very good to the under. 20 unders to just 14 overs thus far this season. As for Colorado, Austin Gombered up the Mets. 2 runs surrendered in 6 innings. Jake Bird, 2 scoreless innings, and then Pierce Johnson, scoreless inning of his own, as Ezekiel Tovar went deep for a second home run season that came off of Steven Negosich. Tyler Miguel, not long for this game. 4 2/3 innings, allows 3 runs, and then Negosich, 2 1/3 innings of long relief, gives up that home run, 2 runs in total before Jeff Brigham and Dominic Leone. They were both able to end a scoreless inning, and for the Mets, they are now 17-17, and they have not covered the run line in any of their last 5 games. So they've been a little bit brutal on that front. The Milwaukee Brewers are starting to regress as well. They lose by a count of 4-1 to the San Francisco Giants, a Brewers team that has yet to win this month. They are now 0-5 here in the month. As for the Milwaukee Brewers, they go 2 of 10 with men in scoring position. Colin Ray gave up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings, including a home run to Theriot Estrada, 5th home run season, and then it was home run number 1 for Brett Wisely. He wisely went deep off of Tyson Miller, who gave up that solo home run over the course of 2 innings. But for the Giants, Alex Cobb had it going on. 7 scoreless innings. From there, Camilo Doval, John Brebbia, they combined to be able to pitch a 9th inning. Brebbia gave up a run along the way, and then you did have a scoreless inning on the former Brewer in Taylor Rogers. Well, the Brewers' struggles, not quite as bad as the St. Louis Cardinals says. For the Cardinals, their losing streak is 8 for the first time in 16 years. They lose to the Detroit Tigers by a count of 6-5. And for the Cardinals, they got up 3-0 very early in this one. They were up by a count of 5-3 towards the back half of the game, and they could not hold on it. Spencer Turnbull, he gave up all the Tigers' runs in this one. 5 runs in total surrender in 4 2/3 innings. As for the St. Louis Cardinals, Nolan Arenado went deep off of him, 3rd home run season, and Dylan Carlson is 2nd. But Adam Wainwright in his first start back, not sharp. Gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings. From there, Drew Verhagen, a scoreless inning. Chris Stratton, 1 2/3 inning scoreless, but Genesis Cabrera allows a run while getting just 1 out of the bullpen. And then in the 10th inning, Giovanni Gallegos gives up an unearned run. He won 2 innings in total, giving up that unearned run that starts on second base. So a little bit unfortunate there, but for the Tigers, they were able to piecemeal together the bullpen to get the job done. Jose Cicerno, Will Vest, they both get 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Jason Shreve, along with Tyler Holton, they were able to hold it down with a combined 2 scoreless innings between the two of them. The Chicago Cubs continue to be relatively solid. They take down the Miami Marlins by a count of 4-2. As for Miami, you had Matt Barnes be the opener in this game, as it was pretty much a poo-poo platter of pitchers, as Barnes, Andrew Nardi, Tanner Scott, they all lend a scoreless inning. You did have Uskar Brazobin give you a scoreless inning, as well as a bulk guy, Brian Hoying. He gave up 1 run over the course of 3 innings, but it's A.J. Puck that costed them 3 runs, 2 of which were allowed while getting just 1 out of the bullpen. They brought in Chichi Gonzalez to close out the 8th inning, and for the Miami Marlins, really lone form of offense was Jorge Soler. Gets his 7th home run season. That came off of Drew Smyly, who was not long for this game. Jacked up his pitch count to 83 in 3 1/3 innings, giving up just 2 runs, but was unable to continue. Keegan Thompson, good long relief. 3 scoreless innings. Michael Rucker, 1 2/3 innings scoreless, and Adbert Alzolay was able to end a scoreless inning as well. The Cleveland Guardians have been a very good team to the under themselves. 21 unders, 11 overs, and a push, and they get it done against the Minnesota Twins by a count of 4-3. As for the Twins, Sonny Gray, worst start of the year for him. Gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings. Jorge Alcala from there allows a solo home run over the course of his 2 innings, as Stephen Kwan gets his first of the campaign before Giovanni Morin was able to lend a scoreless inning. Meanwhile, for the Guardians, Logan Allen, he was able to give this team length and wiggled out of a couple sticky situations, giving up 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings, including a home run, as Max Kepler took him deep for his 5th home run season, and Carlos Correa would go deep off of Trevor Stephen a little bit later on, 5th home run season. But for the Twins, they go 0-7 with men in scoring position. For Stephen, he gave up that solo home run in 1 1/3 innings. Sam Entages, James Karinchak combined for a scoreless inning, and Emmanuel Clase closes the door. He was able to land a scoreless inning. DK Nation write-up unfortunately goes down, as for me it's been very streaky. I've been following up a lot of 4+ game win streaks with a pair of losses. Hopefully we can get back on track on Sunday. 8-2, the Toronto Blue Jays took it to the Buccos, as Jose Barrios, very good start in this one. I will give him a little bit of credit. 2 runs surrendered in 6 1/3 innings, including a home run to Jack Swiniski, as Swiniski goes deep for home run number 7 of the season. Meanwhile, Yohan Oviedo did not have it. 7 runs, 6 of which were earned, allowed in 5 innings, as from there you did have a pair of scoreless innings from Yohan Ramirez, and Cody Bolton, well, he was not bolting it down. He gave up 1 run over the course of 2 innings. Meanwhile, for the Blue Jays, bullpen did their part. Tim Meza was able to end a scoreless inning along J.E. Jackson and a pair of outs out of the bullpen out of Anthony Bass. He, I guess, decided to put aside his popcorn differences and actually pitch in this one. You saw some very good pitching from the Oakland A's bullpen, something I didn't think I would say a lot of. 5-4. The Oakland A's get it done as Ken Waldichuk got lit up once again. He gives up 6 hits, 6 walks, 4 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. As for the Kansas City Royals, they took him deep twice. Bobby Witt Jr. gets a 2nd home run season, and Freddie Furman was able to get his 2nd home run season. But for the Royals, they leave 15. Count of 15 men on base, and Brady Singer, he was singing the blues, giving up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, including a home run to J.J. Bleday for his 2nd home run season. For the A's, it combined 4 scoreless innings out of Zach Jackson, Sam Ball, Richard Lovelady, and Oroni Garcia. Meanwhile, the Royals bullpen actually did a solid job as well. Taylor Clark, 2 scoreless innings, and then Scott Barlow, Josh Staymount, along with Josh Taylor, they were all able to lend a scoreless inning of their own. You saw the Cincinnati Reds be on to a win, 5-3. They take down the Chicago White Sox as Mike Clevenger, another less than terrific start. 4 runs surrendered over the course of 6 innings, as it was TJ Friedel who was able to get his 3rd home run season. For Friedel, he had a triple and a home run, so single had a double short of the cycle. Nick Lodolo, he gave up 3 runs in 3 2/3 innings as well, so not a great start, as he gave up a home run to Sebi Zavala and Enzo Alberto. Both of them got their 2nd home runs of the season, but for the Reds, their bullpen was magnificent. Alexis Diaz, a scoreless inning, Ian Gilbo, 2 scoreless innings, and Derek Law, 2 1/3 innings scoreless. For the White Sox, you had Gregory Santos give up a run in an inning, and Alex Colome actually was able to end a scoreless inning, but a little bit of a case of too little too late. And if you're looking at totals, well, hopefully you've been early on some of these moves, because we have been seeing things yo-yo and zigzag with regards to totals, but bookmakers, they are certainly doing their part to put up some good numbers. 244 overs to 240 unders. I believe that we've had about 16 pushes along the way. So overs are currently hitting at a 50.4% clip. Favorites, they continue to be rock solid this year, hitting at a 59.3% rate, 297 and 204 straight up. But if you're looking at the run line, that's been a little bit more of a different circumstance, as we have now seen 76 different teams be unable to cover the run line, as favorites on the run line 221 and 282 when laying the run and a half. Meanwhile, if you take a look at the last 7 days of Major League Baseball, it has been a little bit of bloodbath for favorites. Favorites are 42 and 50 straight up, so if you've taken the underdog, you're 50 and 42 straight up just in the last 7 days, and with the run line, you've been really having a rough time of it for favorites, as just 31 favorites have covered the -1.5 run line. So 11 of the teams have won outright, and over the last 7 days, very even Steven with regards to the totals. 46 overs to 45 unders. So that has been interesting to take a look at as well. I believe we've had just one push along the way. So that's what we're seeing in Major League Baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Saturday. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Jovan Alford. He does great work over at Sporting News, taking a look at player props, doing an amazing job on that front, so we're going to be taking a look at that, how he's trying to extract value, some of the splits that he takes a look at, and we're going to dive into a few games for Sunday along with some ascending/descending teams. That is up next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units return, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their MBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Great to be joined by this man, as Jovan Alford does a great job over there at Sporting News. He's been doing a good job all season long, taking a look at what we've all been getting in the great game of baseball, as I know that he's been giving out some sides and totals, but where he's really been finding a lot of value has been some player props. I know that, along with another friend of the network, Adam Rosenberg, have been doing a great job on that front. And to be able to follow Jovan on Twitter, that is at Jovan, the number 10. So that is Jovan, and then the number 10 altogether. And Jovan, great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Hey, I'm glad to be on, Greg. Appreciate you for having me.
I appreciate you, Jovan. And first things first, before we dive into some teams and we dive into some games for Sunday, where have you been finding a lot of success with regards to the player prop market? Because I know that there's been a lot of buzz about the new rules making things a little bit different for being able to gauge player props, and I think that that has been a little bit of an angle of yours thus far this season.
Oh, yeah, definitely. When it comes to player props, last year I was really heavy into K props and, total base props, slightly diving into that. But now it's coming into this year, it seems like the K prop market has just been completely tanked to the point where we're getting juicy odds and we're not getting the same result that we would have seen for some of the better pitchers in the league that we're not seeing against, teams that are real strikeout heavy. With that being in mind, I decided to go and pivot to just straight total base props, which I believe, for anybody that's betting props in baseball, I think it's a very profitable and it's a very fun way, to look at the game, right? Because we're talking about, star players, the Buxton, the Harpers, the Vlad Guerreros. I mean, Brian Reynolds, who's having a great year, all these type of guys for plus money for a total base prop, which is only over 1.5 in a lot of books. So I feel and with that, you only need 2 hits or a double or a home run or a triple for that to hit. And I feel those are so easy to figure out, especially if there's guys on a hitting streak or, they have a good matchup against a certain pitcher or they're hitting right-handers a little bit better. So I've been finding a lot of value and a lot of fun with the total base props and trying to get into HRR, but obviously a lot of books don't really have that one. So it's really been just straight total base props for me.
I know that you have taken a look at a few home run props, which I do feel like those are a little bit more of a roll of the dice because, we saw Aaron Judge set the American League record with 62 home runs, and not all 62 were in 62 separate games. So you, no doubt about it, should be getting a rather nice plus price if you're at all taking a look at a home run prop, unless if they're playing the game in Mexico City. But how have you been sort of gauging those? Because those are, I feel like, probably not like as much of big giant plays, but they're more sprinkles on a few guys that you think could be able to hit at like a plus $4, plus $4.50. Do you just sort of take a look at what you do with a lot of total base props where it's sort of like a good matchup against lefties, against a certain pitcher, what have you?
Yeah, that's exactly how I look at it, right? And like you said, I think that is so smart what you mentioned about home run props, sprinkling, right? You never really want to try to go full unit depending on what your unit is, just because there's so much variance in a guy, hitting a home run rather than a total base prop. So for me, I've actually been having a lot of fun betting on home run props. Earlier in the season when we didn't really have like a lot of statistics and data to back up on, certain guys, you were really leaning on, matchups, like how was this hitter against this pitcher, right? Or even remembering like Jordan Lyles was giving up a ton of home runs last year, right? And wondering if he's going to continue that same type of trend. But as we've got deeper into the season now, as we're in May, we do have some stats and some, and some facts to help pick and narrow down like who do you target in a lot of home run props. And I got to give, a big credit to our guy, Adam, his model that he came up with on how to like narrow down certain guys when you're looking at barrel rate and what's the pitcher, is he a fly ball pitcher, is he ground ball, and what's the pitches that a lot of these hitters are locating on, if there's the pull or they're going oppo or they're hitting the ball straight, a lot of different things. And his model has been, I think, really successful in kind of narrowing down and kind of giving you a little bit more deeper insight on, okay, like this guy's like barreling the ball like really good right now, and he might have a good chance of hitting one out of the park.
And I would not doubt if there's been a little bit of a different baseball use this season as well. So I know that there was this nice stat of through 447 games this season, there had been 1,012 home runs. Last season, 819. And we have had a little bit of better weather just across the United States this season. But I don't think that that's necessarily too much of a coincidence either. And that means a nice feast for those that are taking a look at some home run props. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Jovan Alford. He does amazing work over at Sporting News. And Jovan, I know that you're out there in the state of Pennsylvania, and it has been rather interesting to take a look at both of the teams in the area. Typically, it's reserved for more or less taking a look at the Philadelphia Phillies, but the Pittsburgh Pirates, they suffer a little bit of a loss on Saturday, but still 20-14 overall, entered into the weekend, second best record in the National League. And I know that you were talking a little bit earlier about Brian Reynolds, him being a little bit of a moneymaker for you in terms of betting on some of his props. What have you seen out of the Pirates thus far? And do you think that perhaps because now they're riding a 5-game losing streak that they're starting to come back to earth a little bit?
I definitely think they'll come back to earth a little bit, just because when you look at their starting rotation, statistically, their best pitcher, I think ERA-wise, was Vince Velasquez. And I know he left his start earlier this week, I think with an injury. So I think with the Pirates, I think we probably will see a little bit of regression going forward. But if their offense continues to play how they play, and this is crazy, they're doing this also without O'Neal Cruz, who a lot of people had a lot of high expectations for coming earlier in the season. So when you got Reynolds hitting, I think McCutchen leads the team in home runs with 6. And I don't think none of us saw like McCutchen having like this bounce back resurgence back in Pittsburgh. You got Jack Sawinski doing his thing and a whole host of other guys. It's actually been probably one of the more fun stories to watch in baseball. And you start to think in your mind, right? We remember what the Orioles are able to do last year and kind of surprise everyone. And you kind of think to yourself, could this Pirates team be the Orioles of last year?
With the Pittsburgh Pirates, it's been nice to be able to watch them be able to ascend. Don't think they're going to be able to continue quite the same trajectory they had towards the beginning part of the season, but it certainly helps when you've got this team as well struggling the way that they have. The St. Louis Cardinals are currently 10-24, and they're 10 games back of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, I don't think we're going to see another 10-24 run for the St. Louis Cardinals, but the more I watch this team, the more that I am convinced that they're relatively bad, because with the St. Louis Cardinals, even though the offense has been relatively fine, as a matter of fact, I believe that they're average to above average in terms of runs scored thus far this season. They just can't pitch to save their lives. And if you can't pitch in the big leagues, you know what? Even if you are slugging out a bunch of runs, unless we are the Boston Red Sox, that's going to lead to doomsday.
And that's been the big thing, right, with the Cardinals is their starting pitching. And you just look at their numbers this season. We're talking 5.17 ERA at home, We're looking at a 6.50 ERA just this month. Last month, 4.25. That's not great, but you'll chalk it up to it's the beginning of the season, April. But overall, as a team, they're not pitching despite having Goldschmidt, Arenado, who's only hitting 241. But we know the type of hitter Nolan Arenado can be, and you think they'll turn it around. The question is for the Cardinals going forward is what can you get out that rotation? Can Miles Michaelis turn it around? Can Flattery and, even Matz kind of turn things around? Because you're looking at those three guys in general. They've given up 18 home runs combined between those three guys, and you can't win in Major League Baseball like that. And they have to get that cleaned up because if your best pitcher is Jordan Montgomery, don't get me wrong, he's done excellent this season. You're going to be in trouble, especially in that division where it's competitive, right? We just mentioned the Pirates, the Brewers, they're playing good baseball this season. And even the Cubs have been very competitive in the Central. So they're going to have to get this together because no matter who you are, you don't want to start off April and May, too far, below 500.
Absolutely agree because, you can have a nice second half run. We've seen that with the Cardinals already pulling off a 17-game win streak just 2 seasons ago. That said, you don't want to be completely buried and unable to get pieces at the trade deadline, which right now that's what the St. Louis Cardinals are in danger of doing when you're 10-24 and the only 2 teams in the big leagues with a worse record than you are the Kansas City Royals and the Oakland A's, which fittingly enough, they're playing this weekend as we do have Jovan Alford, who does great work over at Sporting News, joining me right here on the podcast. And or just a few other teams in general that have stood out to you, maybe either that you think that they're off to a little bit of a slow start and they're going to be able to pick it up, or they're off to this really hot start and you think that maybe there's going to be a little bit of regression with them.
I think for me, teams that, that are standing out to me, you got to look at the Minnesota Twins, right? This is a team that you probably say over the last couple of years, they're close and they're just right there, but just something happens, right? The rotation kind of falters or Byron Buxton gets hurt. Buxton is healthy, and this starting rotation has been outstanding. Sonny Gray has been electric. Joe Ryan just picking back up where he left off as a rookie. And then you get the addition of Pablo Lopez in the offseason, for a guy like Luis Arias, who, was the batting champion in the American League. So Twins have been really playing well for me. The Red Sox, same thing, right? Pitching hasn't been excellent for them, but they've rounded out in form, offensively, led by Rafael Devers, and people probably were going to wonder, what was going to happen to that offense without a guy like Xander Bogaerts and even Trevor Story, Adam Duvall hurt. Devers has kind of carried the load, but he's not doing it alone. As you have, Yoshida, the rookie, he's been just talk about a guy that's, not showing signs of a rookie, one of the hottest hitters in baseball. So those 2 teams in the American League have been, surprising. And then in the National League for me, the Diamondbacks been playing good baseball. And again, I don't think nobody, saw that. But again, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, a great 2-1-2 punch to lead that rotation. And then, like I said, the Cubs, another team that I don't think none of us kind of knew what to expect from them, but they've been able to hold their own so far. The addition of Dansby Swanson, he didn't hit his first home run until later into the season, but Stroman and Taillon and Weneski, like those guys are really playing good baseball, and they just called up Matt Mervis on Thursday, and he made his debut on Friday. And hopefully that gives that offense a big punch because you're looking at a guy that was a power hitter down in the minors for him. So those are just a couple of teams that stood out to me outside of, the bottom dwellers like the Royals and the Athletics who are trying to figure out what direction they want to possibly go in.
Yeah, with the A's especially, I think we know what direction they're going in. They're going in the direction of lovely Las Vegas, where hopefully they'll spend
Right.
a little bit of money because I believe that their payroll is actually less this year than it was like 20 years ago. It's just really sad to watch them. So we shall see what happens there, and we shall see what happens on the board for Sunday as we've got all 30 teams in action. We do have a few TBD starters. We do have a few games that are currently off the board, but things are starting to solidify as we do this recording, Jovan, and just want to throw this out there and see if you've got anything that you're taking a look at, whether that be for some player prop leans, which typically those are going to be listed a little bit more towards the AM. It's a little bit harder to get down overnight on player props, but maybe a side or a total that you might be taking a look at for Sunday.
For me, I'm possibly, and we just talked about these things weirdly enough, I'm looking at that Oakland A's Kansas City Royals game, specifically just for player prop wise, number one, just because Ryan Yarbrough has not been good at all. And I think that's just been a synopsis of this Royals starting rotation for the most part. They could put up some runs up on this guy. You're looking at a pitcher with a 7.4 ERA, 24 hits allowed in 20.2 in his pitch. I'm looking forward to, maybe the first 5. I might have to consider, laying that plus 108 on the first 5 run line, and if a half run with the Athletics, just because I think they can get to this guy. And we don't think of the Athletics as a team that puts up a ton of runs, and they don't really have the star power offensively, but they've been able to put up some runs against the Kansas City Royals just this weekend alone with the guys that they have, like Rooker and Blade and Langoliers and Stewie Ruiz at the top of the order, who just causes all type of havoc once he gets on the base pass. So I'm looking at that, especially if the Royals continue their trek the way they've been trekking at home right now.
Yeah, and I do think that with looking a little bit more at a first 5 with the Oakland A's, that might be a tad bit smarter as well, because, man, I can't tell you how bad this Oakland A's bullpen is. It has been just ridiculous. Entering into Saturday, by the way, dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA at 6.80. They had to DFA half their bullpen midweek just because they were so bad after they allowed that 5 spot in the 10th inning to the Seattle Mariners, which that was a very fortunate win for me on that one, and I am not going to apologize about that one bit. And to your point, Mason Miller actually has been relatively solid for the Oakland A's. 7 no-hit innings in his last start for them. So that is going to be an interesting game. And Jovan, I know that you're doing a great job taking a look at the game of baseball day in and day out, but I know that you're doing a lot of other things as well. I know that you've been locked in with regards to the NBA playoffs, which has been so interesting. I know that you obviously do a good job of following football when that's in season as well. So all the good people at home know it's all on tap for you, and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Once again, appreciate you for having me on Sport News. A lot of daily fantasy, DFS, player props, betting, baseball, NBA, USFL, XFL, all that good stuff right there. But also for Philadelphia sports stuff, you can check out TotalSportsLive.com, Total Sports Live podcast with me and Harrison Brown.
And Jovan does a great job on so many different fronts right now. His main 2 things are taking a look at the game of baseball and taking a look at the NBA player props as well. But he's very well-rounded, able to find value in so many different markets. And every single time he joins his podcast, has great insights, much like he did today. So big thanks to Jovan Alford for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Sunday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Great to be able to get Jovan Alford on today. He does great work over at Sporting News. I know that he's been doing a tremendous job all season long, taking a look at a lot of these player props. So it was good to be able to get that perspective aboard. I know that he's also out there in the great state of Pennsylvania, where it has been an interesting year for the Pirates and the Philadelphia Phillies. So big thanks to Jovan for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Sunday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at GN_41. We're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, and any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So without further ado, let's dive in on this first game of 9:51, 9:52 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies are on the road facing off against the New York Mets. Joey Lucchesi goes for the Mets. Ryan Feltner is on the bump for Colorado. Total is 9 with the under at anywhere between -115 to a -125. The over is anywhere between -105 and +105. And with the Mets, I did set the -211 on the money line. If you're looking at the run line, you're finding that between even money and -105, I was willing to go up to a -110. So I'm going to be taking a look at the Mets run line. Recognize that this offense has been quite a bit less than savory, as for the New York Mets, they enter having scored a whopping 3 runs in their last 3 games, 4 runs in their last 4, so it has not been so terrific, but I do think that Ryan Feltner is doing for some pretty massive regression, a career ERA that's a little bit north of 5, and I'll give him a little bit of credit. He's been very good in his last few starts. 3 total starts, he has given up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned, 4 walks in that time span, but I do think that things are going to start to compound a little bit. Still has 4.5 walks per 9 innings thus far this season. On the road, he has had his issues as well, as he's given up north of 4.5 walks per 9 innings. Swing and miss stuff, by the way, this year. Much better for him. He's up to 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but I do think that with Ryan Feldner, he still does give up a lot of hard contact. When you're going up against someone like Pete Alonso, who's been able to slug out 11 home runs, that should be able to get him right. And this is a Mets team that, as a collective, they are hitting just at .236. They still do a solid job, though, of moving the line. One of the best teams at being able to take pitches, be able to draw walks in the big leagues, as you've got a pair of guys in Brett Baty along with Omar Narvaez that have north of a 350 on base, Jeff McNeil, Daniel Vogelbach, Brandon Nimmo, at least a 387 on base as well. What's really killing them is the bottom of the fold. Guys like Starling Marte, Tommy Pham, Francisco Alvarez, Eduardo Escobar, hitting below a 220. That has been brutal, and with the Colorado Rockies, they were able to put up a 5 spot yesterday, but this bunch has been very brutal with their bats on the road all season long. Last year, they were the top team in terms of runs per game at home, dead last in terms of runs per game on the road. It's a very common occurrence with the Colorado Rockies since the beginning of the 2022 season, averaging fewer than 3.1 runs per contest. No other team averaging fewer than 3.35 runs per game. They entered into yesterday at 217 on the road with a 283 on base and just not supplying a lot of power. They had 11 home runs in 17 games on the road. Going into yesterday, you've had C.J. Cron be able to get some home runs on the road, but that was in the first series of the season before really the elevation changes were able to take hold. So I do think that there are some concerns there. You have had Charlie Blackmon be able to move the line. He's been able to give the team a 365 on base, and I do think that Randall Grichuk getting into the fold, that's big. He's at a 455 ever since he's come back, obviously. That'll be coming back to earth, but also Elias Diaz has been able to hit a 343, but you don't necessarily have a lot of power with this Colorado Rockies team. Now, what I will say for the Rockies is that their bullpen has been much better this year. They bring in Brent Suter, who currently has a sub-1 ERA. Pierce Johnson has not been too terrific, but Brad Hand is able to give you a sub-4 ERA when you're playing half your games at Coors Field. That's actually relatively solid. And for the New York Mets, this has been a top 10 bullpen in terms of ERA this season. Adnan Avino's a little bit old, but being able to get good innings out of David Robertson. Tommy Hunter has been a disaster, but now you've got Dominic Leon back in the fold. So I do think that this is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game, and I do think that Joey Lucchesi going to be able to do a solid job. He's seen 3 starts thus far this season. He has given up the 3 home runs, which is a little bit of a concern, but I do think that going up against this Colorado Rockies bunch is going to be exactly what he needs. Just 4 walks in 16 and a third innings thus far this season, so command has been relatively on point. So I told it at 8.4, looking at the under, and with the Mets, want to lay up to a minus 110 on the run line. And 53, 954 on the betting board. It is the Miami Marlins on the road, going up against the Chicago Cubs. Hayden Wesneski goes for the Cubs. Sandy Alcantara is on the bump for Miami. And the Fish are between minus 118 to minus 125 favorites, between plus 105 and plus 112. Your number on Chicago. Currently no numbers up on this game. A lot of that is because of the Wrigley Field win. There's going to be most books that are going to be waiting until the AM to post up a number with regards to the total. I can tell you right now that I set mine at a 7.8. So 7.5 or less, I'm going to be taking a look at the over, and 8 or higher, I'm going to be taking a look at the under. Seems like early on in this game, we're going to be getting some directional wind. We might get the wind blowing in a little bit towards the middle/back part of this game, but it's going to be more around 5 to 7 miles per hour. So the wind should not be a massive factor here. It might help out the pitchers a little bit, but I don't think that it's going to be any sort of a major role player in this game. And with that said, I did set the Cubs as a minus 113 favorite, so I am going to be taking a look at the Cubs, getting a plus price for Sandy Alcantara. He just has not been himself thus far this season. And even last year, he wasn't much of a swing and miss guy. This year, he's getting right around 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, which is pretty much on par / a little bit better than what he did last season. But that said, for Sandy Alcantara, he has been giving you right around 3 walks per 9 innings. And what was really big for Sandy last year is that he was able to provide length. He's won fewer than 6 innings in now 3 out of his last 4 starts. He's given up at least 3 runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts as well. He's honestly been able to do a little bit of better job with the swing and miss stuff, but that's not really his game. Meanwhile, Hayden Wesneski, I recognize that there are some underlying numbers, and the fact that he has been giving up some hard contact that does lead you to be a little bit tepid with regards to him, but he has given up 1 run or fewer in now 3 out of his last 4 starts. Not much of a strikeout guy. He's gotten 6 strikeouts over the course of his last 3 starts. Those starts spanning a grand total of 15 and a third innings, but he does a nice job holding down the fort, doesn't really give up a lot of walks, a 2.7 walks per 9 rate, and for the Chicago Cubs, they entered into Saturday the top team in the National League in terms of overall batting average among guys that have seen at least 41 at-bats thus far this season. Every one of them, except for Patrick Wisdom, are all hitting at least a 250, and for Wisdom, he's been able to supply 11 home runs. You got so many guys like a Cody Bellinger, Yan Gomes, Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ, all hitting at least a 285 for this team. They do a solid job of being able to draw some walks as well. Now with the Cubs, not necessarily the world's greatest bullpen in the world. They entered into this series 18th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA, but for the Miami Marlins, it's not like they're doing any better. They're currently 25th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA as Michael Fulmer, Brad Boxberger. They've been a little bit hit or miss, but I really like what I've seen out of Mark Leiter Jr. in this Cubs bullpen. Sub-2 ERA. I do think that you're going to be able to get some good long relief out of Keegan Thompson moving forward as well. And then for the Miami Marlins, they're still without JT Chargois. Has been a little bit of an issue. They had to really use up so many guys with throwing an opener and Matt Barnes for Brian Hoying, who only gave you 3 innings, so this team is relatively tired with A.J. Puck and company coming out of the bullpen. Stephen Okert has not been himself thus far this season, so I do think that you've got some value here on the Chicago Cubs. Like I said, with regards to the total 7.5 or less, looking at the over, 8 or higher. Going to be taking a look at the under. And with the Cubs, made them the favorite on the money line. So, riding with that Cubs money line to go along with that total that we shall see upon in the AM. 955, 956 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers at the road face off against the San Francisco Giants. Ross Stripling goes for the Giants, and it is Adrian Hauser who makes his season debut for the Milwaukee Brewers. 8.5 to 9 is your total on the 8.5 over minus 120. The under is even on the 9. The over and the under are both at minus 110. Giants are between minus 120 to minus 130 favorites. Between plus 105 and plus 110 is the number on the Milwaukee Brewers. I did set the Giants as very slight favorites of a minus 104. So being able to get north of a plus 105, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, it has been a case where Adrian Hauser began the season on the injured list, has been making 4 rehab starts at the AAA level. Hasn't necessarily been going overly deep in a lot of these starts, but I do think that he's going to be able to do an okay job for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's backed up by a Brewers bullpen that, well, prior to recent events was looking very solid. This is a Brewers team that entered into Saturday in terms of bullpen ERA, still right around 11th in the league with that regard. Peter Strzelecki has been having a little bit of a tough time, but I do think that these guys are going to be able to pick it up. You've got someone in Bryce Wilson who has proven to be a relatively solid long guy thus far this season, and when it comes to Ross Stripling, he has a few similarities to Adrian Hauser. Neither of these guys are necessarily power pitchers. Both of these guys, when it's all said and done, are probably going to have right around about 7 to 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Both of these guys pride themselves on command, though I will say for his career, Adrian Hauser, 3.7 walks per 9 innings. That's just not going to cut it this far this season. For Ross Stripling, just 5 walks in 20 and 2/3 innings, so he's been able to do an okay job there. And I will say for Ross Stripling, he's been able to hold down the fort, giving up a combined 6 runs over the course of his last 4 appearances. Now, the problem with that is that 3 out of his last 4 appearances have been 3 1/3 innings or less. He was finally able to go 5 innings in his last start against the Houston Astros, gave up 2 runs in that one, so nothing great, nothing terrible, but he is also backed up by one of the most atrocious bullpens that you're going to find in the big leagues, as the San Francisco Giants entered into Saturday night dead last in the National League in terms of bullpen ERA at a 6.04, as you really don't have a lot of guys here you're able to trust. And Camilo Udval has been able to do a solid job for this team. He's currently supplying an ERA that's right around about a 260. Scott Alexander last year had a sub-3 ERA, but when you get into Rogers Squared, along with John Brebbia, guys like this, they just have not been too terrific. Now for the San Francisco Giants, but has really been helping them out is the deep ball, but because they play at Oracle Park, that actually is the disadvantage of them. They are currently averaging 2 home runs per game on the road. That is the top mark in the National League. 1.2 home runs per game when they are at home. That's relatively league average, maybe a little bit above average, but you know what, when you have to try to hit it out at Oracle Park, it's not so easy, and with the Giants, they do a really good job with their platoon splits. I don't think you're going to have anyone that has north of 30 home runs this season. If you do, it's probably going to be J.D. Davis, who's been able to supply a 280 average. He's been able to go deep 7 times this far this season, but outside of J.D. Davis, you've got a pair of guys with 6 home runs, Wilbur Flores, Lamonte Wade Jr., you've had Blake Sabo, Mike Yastrzemski, both give you 5, and then you've got 4 different guys with 4. So guys have been all over the place, but you do have some guys that are failing to move the line. David Villar, Brandon Crawford, Michael Conforto, only below the Mendoza line of 200, so that's been a little bit of an issue. Meanwhile, for the Milwaukee Brewers, after a good start to the season, this has been an offense that has really been coming back to earth. The Garrett Mitchell injury has been certainly hurting them, and just not getting what you paid for out of Christian Yelich. Guy's been providing about a 235 batting average, not necessarily a whole heck of a lot there. Rowdy Tellez, so 9 home runs, hitting about a 250 going into yesterday. You're certainly going to be taking that. Brian Anderson has been able to provide a 335 on base, and got a lot of guys in Anderson, Williadamas, Tellez, Owen Miller, all these guys providing about a 325 to a 340-ish on base. So I do think that the Milwaukee Brewers are going to be able to generate a little bit of offense. I do think that's going to be a bit of a slog for both of these teams to score. Now, San Francisco a little bit more hitter-friendly during the daytime than the nighttime, but I do think that Hauser going to be able to keep the ball in the yard. I think that this ballpark is very suited for him, and I do think that the Brewers' advantage in the bullpen lends to their advantage. So I did set the Brewers where a plus 105 or greater. Want to take them on the money line, and set my total at an 8.3, so here between an 8.5 to a 9, also looking under 957, 958 on the betting board. It is the Washington Nationals on the road facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ryan Nelson goes for the Snakes, and Trevor Williams is on the bump for Washington, and the Nationals are between plus 140 and plus 148 underdogs, hanging between minus 155 and minus 168 is your number on Arizona, 9.5 the total. The unders anywhere between minus 110 to a minus 120. The overs anywhere between even and minus 110, and with the Arizona Diamondbacks made the minus 173 on the money line, was willing to take a plus 110 or greater on the run line. Trevor Williams is not the concern here, honestly, for the Washington Nationals, as he's been a pretty steady Eddie guy. He's not going to go out there and is going to give you like 7 scoreless innings or anything like that, but he is going to do his job. He's got a 3.41 ERA this far this season, and he's going to provide some length, a little bit over 2 walks per 9 innings, but he is someone that is going to give up quite a bit of contact, not much of a swing and miss guy, about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and when it comes to Ryan Nelson, he is still a little bit of a work in progress for this Arizona Diamondbacks team as well. 3+ runs surrendered in 4 out of his last 5 starts. Certainly has been having a bit of a tough time getting strikeouts himself, as he's only getting right around 5.5 to 6 strikeouts per 9 innings as well. But this is a Washington Nationals team that is currently dead last in the National League in terms of total home runs, entering into yesterday a whopping 19 home runs over the course of 32 games, and you currently have 3 guys with north of 2 home runs on this team, as Luis Garcia, Alex Call have 3 home runs, and Jahmir Candelario has been able to provide 4. Now, what is helping out the Washington Nationals is that they don't strike out a lot. As a matter of fact, they are number 1 in the league in terms of fewest strikeouts, and you do have guys that are able to get on base for this team, as Victor Robles has been able to provide about a 380 on base, and then you've got Call along with Lane Thomas, Stone Garrett, Michael Chavis, Dominic Smith, all between about a 320 to a 333 on base, but you just don't have those guys that are able to drive in runs. Meanwhile, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, entering into the series, they had the top batting average at home of any team in the National League. You're starting to get Christian Walker to turn it around after a rough start to the season he entered into yesterday, hitting at 270 with 7 home runs, and just take a look at his last 15 days, hitting at 357 with 5 bombs. He has been absolutely tremendous for this team, and it's been a lot of unlikely guys that have been able to step up for this team. I did like Corbin Carroll towards the beginning part of the season. He's been able to swipe 10 bags, 380 on base. That has been terrific, but you've got Josh Rojas along with Walker, Lourdes Gurriel, Ketel Marte, Pavin Smith, even the backup catcher in Jose Herrera, who have been able to hit between about a 259 to 275. Gabriel Moreno's hitting about a 300, and Geraldo Perdomo is hitting nearly a 400. It's been absolutely ridiculous what we've seen out of that now, with the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Washington Nationals pretty equal in terms of their bullpens. Both of these teams entered into the series anywhere between about 19th and 24th in terms of bullpen ERA. With the Arizona Diamondbacks, Andrew Chafin and Miguel Castro have been good additions, and now they've got Joe Mantiply back in the fold as well. He's got about a 3 ERA this far this season. Kyle Nelson has been amazing as well. And then for the Washington Nationals, Carl Edwards Jr., Mason Thompson, pair of guys with a sub-3 ERA, Hunter Harvey's been able to hold down the fort along with Andres Machado as well. So I do think that both of these teams are going to be able to get some okay bullpen play with both of these starters. Neither of them get a lot of swings and misses, but I think that they're going to do enough to keep the ball in the air to keep this total under. Semi-total at a 9.3. So looking at the 9.5 under for Arizona, I think that they just back up Ryan Nelson better. So wanted to take them on the run line with the Diamondbacks to go along with this total under 959, 960 on the betting board. The San Diego Padres play host to the LA Dodgers. Julio Arias goes for the Dodgers, and Joe Musgrove is on the bump for the Padres. Padres are pretty much minus 105 across the board, with the Dodgers finding them between minus 105 to a minus 115. 8 is your total, over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and with the Dodgers set them at a minus 122. I'm going to be willing to back Julio Arias and company, because with Arias, if you take a look at him since the beginning part of the 2021 season, his ERA on the road has been about a half a point better than it has been at home. Now, we've seen a little bit of reversal this year. He's gotten lit up in a few of his road starts thus far this season, as when he went to Chicago, he gave up 5 runs in that start, 6 runs surrendered in his start in Pittsburgh, but I do think that he's going to be able to turn around just a 3.86 ERA this far this season for Julio Arias, because he has given up 8 home runs, and he has given up a grand total of 7 home runs across his last 4 starts. I do think, though, that giving up just 1 run in 7 innings against the Philadelphia Phillies is going to be able to get him right. And for Joe Musgrove, he's made 2 starts this year, and one of those starts came in Mexico City. So, it's really hard to be able to take a look at his numbers this year and put any sort of credence behind it whatsoever. I take a look at his 2022 numbers. He had a 2.86 ERA. He was very rock solid with that regard. And in 3 starts against the LA Dodgers, he did give up 4 home runs in 17 and a third innings, 3.63 ERA. Against the Dodgers, though, you know what? That's not the world's worst results. The biggest thing for the San Diego Padres is being able to get their offense going, because you've got a lot of guys that they just have not been too terrific. If you throw out the series in Mexico City, this is a San Diego Padres team that ranks in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, and they rank in the bottom 5 in terms of overall batting average. We are starting to see some of these guys pick it up a little bit more, but you saw Matt Carpenter, Juan Soto, Ha-Sung Kim, along Trent Grisham, all in between about a 225 to 235. Manny Machado, he's hitting now about a 245, but it's really been all about Xander Bogaerts hitting a 285, 6 bombs, Fernando Tatis Jr., and then multi-home run game against Clayton Kershaw, which should be able to bring him back. But for the LA Dodgers, they entered into Saturday leading the National League in terms of both home runs and total runs. Max Muncy, big league leader in terms of home runs with 12. What has been hurting this team have been some of the guys at the bottom of the fold, as you've had guys like Jason Hayward, Miguel Rojas, Trace Thompson, Chris Taylor hitting below a 225. That's been a little bit of an issue, but getting back Will Smith is absolutely massive. As he and Freddie Freeman, along James Ellman as well, hitting above a 275. All these guys are able to supply some power. Mookie Betts is starting to pick it up as well. Big thing for the Dodgers is this bullpen was number 1 in the National League last year in terms of ERA. Thus far this season, they have been anything but that. As a matter of fact, they entered into Saturday number 23 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They currently do not have Alex Vesia. They picked up Wander Isuero. This guy sucks, which is not good, but you still have Caleb Bergeson, Bruce Gratterall, guys that are able to give you a sub-3 ERA. And then for the San Diego Padres, Josh Hader is absolutely amazing, but who's going to be able to get him the ball? As Steven Wilson has been a little bit of a mess this season. Domingo Tapia has really never been too great throughout his career. Luis Garcia is rocking north of a 5 ERA, so that's a little bit of a concern that you have on both sides. I do think that Julio Arias, though, he was able to have a really nice start, and I do think that Joe Musgrove is going to find his form as well. And start in Mexico City really jacked up his numbers, and I do think that we're going to see the 2022 form of Joe Musgrove. Semi-total at 7.3, so looking at the under in this spot, and with the Dodgers, want to lay up to a minus 120 with them. 961, 962 on the betting board. It is the New York Yankees. They hit the road to face off against the Tampa Bay Rays, as it is going to be Javi Guerra who's going to be the opener for the Tampa Bay Rays. It's expected to be a bulk game for Josh Fleming. Meanwhile, Garrett Cole is on the bump for the New York Yankees. As I am recording this, there are currently no numbers up, but I do have my handicap. I did set Garrett Cole as a minus 135 favorite, and my total is 7.2. This means that a 7 or less, I'm going to be taking a look at the total over, and a 7.5 or higher, I'm going to be taking a look at the under. Now with Javi Guerra, you got to expect him to be probably about a 2-inning guy, and this is very much to be expected with the Tampa Bay Rays. And this was something that I did factor in when I did make my handicap for this one, because the Tampa Bay Rays oftentimes are going to trot out there an opener for Josh Fleming, and you might be wondering, what sort of a difference does an opener make for Josh Fleming, it actually has made a rather substantial one, because when Josh Fleming comes out of the bullpen, he's been much more effective just throughout his entire career. As a reliever, he's got a 3.41 ERA. His home runs per 9 rate is right around about a 0.65. Meanwhile, when he has been a starter throughout his career, his home runs per 9 rate jumps to a 1.3, and he's got a 6.05 ERA. That is about a 2.5 point difference with regards to his ERA, although I will say Javi Guerra probably the worst of the Tampa Bay relievers, so that is a little bit of an issue, but that is worth pointing out. Meanwhile, for the New York Yankees, this is an offense that is not getting a lot generated. They were able to get some innings late in the game yesterday, as Harrison Bader has been a big addition for this team. He had a home run a little bit earlier in the series, and you do have G.J. LeMahieu moving the line. He's got a 3.45 on base. Anthony Rizzo has been able to about a 2.80 as well, and he's able to provide a little bit of power, but not a lot of dead bats currently in the lineup. Kyle Higashioka, Aaron Hicks, Jake Bowers, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. You're able to go down the list of guys. They're in a sub 220. Anthony Volpe has been able to steal bases, but he's only in at 220 himself, so there's been a lot of issues there. Meanwhile, for the Tampa Bay Rays, they lead the league at darn near every offensive category. We have seen a few guys like Luke Raley, along Christian Bethancourt, Brandon Lau as well, hitting below 235, but with Lau, he still is providing a lot of power. You've got Yandy Diaz, Wander Franco, Randy Arozarena. All these guys are hitting above a 300. All these guys have been able to give you 9+ home runs this far this season as well. Harold Ramirez, he's hitting a 336 home runs. You just take a look at the Tampa Bay Rays. They're hitting righties, they're hitting lefties, but they are also going up against a New York Yankees lineup that has been absolutely amazing in terms of their bullpen. You take a look at these two teams, and they entered into this series in the top 3 nationally in terms of ERA. Right now it is the New York Yankees, as a matter of fact, that is number 1 with this regard. Clay Holmes was used up yesterday, so fortunately you don't have to deal with that, as Michael King, Juan Marinaccio, Wandy Peralta, Jimmy Cordero, Albert Abreu, also applying a sub-2.7 ERA. Meanwhile, for the Tampa Bay Rays, I do think that you're going to be able to get some good production out of guys like Colin Boucher, Ryan Thompson, Jason Adam and company in this bullpen as well, but Garrett Cole has just been absolutely rolling as far this season. A $1.35 ERA. No home runs allowed in 46 2/3 innings. I could see that coming to an end here. He has been getting 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, which for his standard is honestly a little bit low, but you know what, about 2.7 walks per 9 innings, he has been rock solid. So I did set the Yankees at a -135 on delay up to a -134 with them. Need at least a +136 to back the Tampa Bay Rays. 7 or less, looking at the over 7.5 prior to the under. 963, 964 on the betting board. It is the Minnesota Twins. They hit the road face-off against the Cleveland Guardians, as Cal Quantrill is going to be going for the Guardians, and Joe Ryan is on the bump for Minnesota. Minnesota is between a -120 to a -130 favorite, anywhere between +105 and +115. Your number on Cleveland. It is the total. Under is -115. The over is -105. And with the Guardians, need at least a +115 to be able to back them. And looks like we are starting to get those numbers. So this is going to be a play for me on the Cleveland Guardians, as long as we can get maybe a penny or two more. But I mean, +115 is pretty much my minimum buy point here with them. Cal Quantrill has been absolutely amazing for the Cleveland Guardians. Somehow, some way, they are 19-3 straight up in his last 22 starts. He just always gets you to the window, and he doesn't do anything that's really impressive. Cal Quantrill is not a guy that's going to be lighting up the radar gun since the beginning part of last season. He's been getting between about 6.5 to 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. I mean, he hasn't even been that good this year. He's got a 4.73 ERA. He's been giving up about 2.6, 2.7 walks per 9 innings, 4 home runs allowed across 32 and a third innings. He's been a little bit unlucky on balls in play, as he's given up 3+ runs in now 3 out of his last 5 starts. But I mean, he just really went out there, held down the fort, made sure to not completely light the game on fire, and the team has been able to pull them out. Meanwhile, Joe Ryan, he's a borderline Cy Young candidate right now. Unfortunately, Garrett Cole has just completely ran away with the thing at this point. But I mean, for Joe Ryan, he has been tremendous, giving up 5 runs across his last 4 starts, just 3 walks in that time span, 7+ punchouts in 4 out of his last 5 starts. This guy has been absolutely superb, as he's also been able to do a great job on the road. $1.80 road ERA, 5 runs surrendered in 25 innings this far this season. Now for the Minnesota Twins, they do back them with a little bit of a lesser bullpen. The Cleveland Guardians have the best bullpen ERA in the big league since the All-Star break of the 2022 season. Meanwhile, for the Twins, they're 12th in terms of bullpen ERA. Now, I do think that you're going to be seeing some of these guys be able to pick it up a little bit more, as they've got Jorge Alcala back from the injured list. Giovanni Morin, who had a 3 ERA last season, he's been rocking north of a 4.5 ERA thus far this season, but you still have Yohan Duran. You just want to be avoiding Emilio Pagan. Meanwhile, for the Cleveland Guardians, got a pair of guys in James Karinchak along with Nick Sandlin that have been posting up north of a 3.5 ERA. Unlike them, but Aniel de los Santos, Trevor Steven, throwing their Emmanuel Clase. These guys have been very tremendous in this bullpen. What has not been tremendous for the Cleveland Guardians, the utter lack of power going into the game on Saturday. Dead last in the American League in terms of home runs, 17 home runs this season, with nobody entering into Saturday with north of 4. And they were able to overcome that last season. The Guardians made the playoffs with the second fewest home runs in the big leagues, but the reason why is that you had so many guys that were able to do a good job of getting on base. Andres Jimenez, Ahmed Rosario, Oscar Gonzalez, Will Brannon. All these guys last year had at least a 270. This season, they're hitting a 230 or lower. You still have Stephen Kwan hitting about a 270, Jose Ramirez hitting a 285 as well, but you just need a little bit more out of these guys. And for the Minnesota Twins, getting back Ore Polanco has been very big for this team, as he's been hitting darn near 300 since his return, but Carlos Correa continues to be terrible. He's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. They've been giving Willie Castro some starts. He hasn't been able to pick it up. Max Kepler is starting to show a little bit more, but power numbers have not necessarily been there. I will say, though, Byron Buxton, over the last 15 days, he's been able to slug out 5 home runs. He's hitting well above a 300, so things are starting to pick up there. Ryan Jeffers has been able to hit about a 273, but have a lot of guys that aren't struggling. When Joey Gallo's been out there, it's been a little bit rough for him recently as well after a nice start to the season. So this is a circumstance where at north of a plus 115, I'm going to be willing to back the Cleveland Guardians on the money line. I do think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. Guardians do a good job with their pitching. So, somebody tell us 7.8, looking at the under and looking at the Guardians at anything above a plus 115. 965, 966 on the betting board. It is the Oakland A's in the road face-off against the Kansas City Royals. Ryan Yarbrough goes for the Royals, and Mason Miller is on the bump for Oakland. Oakland is as low as a minus 106, as good as even money. Anywhere between minus 116 to a minus 104 is your number on Kansas City. 9.5 is the total. The over and the under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. It's up by total at a 9.2. I'm going to be looking at the under despite the fact that we've got 2 of the bottom 4 bullpens in the big leagues going at it. And the big reason why is because I actually really like what I've seen out of Mason Miller. His last start, he won 7 no-hit innings. He gets yanked, and then the bullpen completely yaks up the game. But with Mason Miller, this guy was a strikeout artist at the minor league level with like 13 punch-outs per 9 innings. Hasn't shown quite as much of that here at the big league level, and can sometimes be a little bit loose with the walks. But by and large, it's a whole heck of a lot better than what you're getting from anyone else for the Oakland A's. Meanwhile, for Ryan Yarbrough, it's been rough for him to say the least, as he's currently posting up a 7.40 ERA. He is not a strikeout guy that has been giving up right around 3.5 walks per 9 innings, so that is not necessarily a great combination. I will say, for the Oakland A's, they have been able to generate runs on the road. Entering into Saturday's game on the road, this has been a bunch, has been hitting right in the neighborhood about a 253, and you've got a trio of guys in Brent Rooker, Shea Langolaris, and Jesus Aguilar. They provided 15 home runs in their first 15 road games of the season. So you've been able to get a little bit of something there. You do have a few guys like Mendes Diaz, Kevin Smith. These guys have not been very good, but Esterio Ruiz has been able to move the line as well. And for the Kansas City Royals, this has been a little bit of a horror show in terms of their lineup as well. But all of a sudden, Salvador Perez is starting to find that old form of his, as he's now been able to give the team right around 6 home runs thus far this season. You take a look at him over the last 15 days, hitting above 300. He's been able to supply 4 bombs in that time span. Vinny Pasquantino, he's hitting at 296 home runs thus far this season. And Bobby Wood Jr. is able to give you 5 home runs as well. It's the bottom of the fold that is killing this team, as Kyle Isabel, Franmil Reyes, Michael Massey, Jackie Bradley Jr., MJ Melendez, Nate Eaton, all hitting at 209 or lower. So that has been a disaster, to say the least, for this Kansas City Royals team. But Royals still do have a little bit of a better bullpen than the Oakland A's. Honestly, I do like the fact that the Oakland A's did get Spencer Patton. He was very good a few seasons ago when he was over with the Texas Rangers. But Sammy Long, Rico Garcia, Shotaro Fujinami, this might be one of the worst bullpens in the history of baseball. Meanwhile, for the Kansas City Royals, Scott Barlow's rocking north of a 5 ERA. Taylor Clark has been a disaster. Roldis Chapman has honestly been fine, right around a 3 ERA. Josh Shamon starting to look a little bit more like himself, but I do think that the Oakland A's are just going to find a way to yak this game away because that is exactly what the Oakland A's do. This is a circumstance where I did set the Royals at a minus 143. I'm going to be willing to back them on the money line. Set my total at 9.2. I expect another good start out of Mason Miller, so looking at the under and looking at the Royals. 967, 968 on the betting board. This is a DK Nation write-up pick as we've got the Texas Rangers on the road facing off against the LA Angels as Jose Suarez is going for the Halos and Martin Perez is on the bump for Texas. Texas is anywhere between even money to a plus 108, anywhere between minus 115 to minus 124 is your number on the Angels. 9.5 is the total. Over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And I made the Rangers a minus 126 favorite. We're going to be riding with them on the money line. Hopefully they can do a little bit more for us than the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Cincinnati Reds have last 2 days on these write-up picks. But for the Texas Rangers, they've got someone in Martin Perez who has a 2.41 ERA that I do think it's going to be going northward a little bit. He's been a tad bit lucky on balls in play. He's only getting about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but it's buttoning things up with the walks. 2.4 walks per 9 innings. That is on pace to be really the best mark of his career. He's been able to do a really good job of just being able to hold down the fort, make sure to not light the game on fire, and he's had a lot of success against the LA Angels. He's made 5 starts against the LA Angels past 2 seasons, 2.54 ERA, no home runs allowed in 20 1/3 innings, and he's really done a good job of limiting hard contact last 2 seasons. Meanwhile, you've got someone in Mr. Suarez with a 7.89 ERA with 2.9 home runs and 5 walks allowed per 9 innings thus far this season. This guy's already been lit up by the Oakland A's at home and throughout his career. Suarez has not been good at home. 5.55 home ERA compared to a 4.97 road ERA, giving up 1.7 bombs per 9 innings at home, and as we know, it plays a little bit more hitter-friendly in Los Angeles during the daytime. Now, I will say, what is really stunning about this matchup is that you got an LA Angels team that is currently, as I do this show, prior to their game against the Texas Rangers on Saturday, number 2 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. So I dove in on this a little bit more. Their xFIP, their expected fielding independent, is actually 15th. There is massive regression coming for this LA Angels bullpen. They are not going to keep this up. These guys are schlubs. They are not going to do this. I can guarantee you that. Now, I do like Matt Moore, the former Texas Ranger. He's had a sub-2 ERA over the last 2 seasons, and I will say Andrew Wantz probably picking things up as well. Sub-1 ERA, but you still have Ryan Tepera out there. He's been giving you about a 9 ERA. Carlos Estevez, he's getting out of Colorado, was big for him, but Chris Stavinsky, he's never really been that good. And for the Texas Rangers, relatively solid bullpen in their own right around 17th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA entering into yesterday. Jonathan Hernandez, throw in there Brock Burke and Jose Leclerc. They all had a sub-3 ERA last season. Josh Saboris is able to give you a few solid innings as well, but this is also a Texas Rangers team that, even though they go up against an LA Angels bunch that's averaging about 6.1 runs per game, they're number 2 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game with right around a 6.3. They've been without Corey Seager the last few weeks, and it hasn't mattered as guys like Ezekiel Duran, Jonah Heim, Marcus Semien, Travis Jankowski are all at least a 285. They're all providing at least a 370 on base. Josh Young, he's been able to slug out 8 home runs. He's hitting about 265 along with Mitch Garver, Leody Taveras. So this team is locked and loaded there. Adolis Garcia has also been able to supply 7+ home runs. Meanwhile, for the LA Angels, you've been able to get some very good power out of Hunter Renfroe, Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, all between 7 and 8 home runs entering into yesterday. And I will say Brandon Drury has been on a little bit of a nice run as well. He's been able to supply the team with 5 home runs over the last 15 days, so that helps him out. But I've had a few guys that have been a little bit rough in this lineup as well. The catcher Logan O'Hoppe being out of the fold, that hurts. Chad Wallach has been able to hit up 300 in the interim. I don't think that is going to be lasting very long. Luis Renifo, Jake Lamb, Taylor Ward hitting between about a 232, 235 has been a little bit up and down for this team as well. But I do think that Jose Suarez is going to be getting lit up, and I do think that there's going to be a bit of regression for Martin Perez as well. So I did set my total at 9.7. Here at a 9.5, I'm going to be willing to take a look at the over, but DK Nation write-up pick made the Texas Rangers a minus 125 favorite, so rocking with the Rangers, and I'm going to be taking a look at this total over as well. 969, 970 on the betting board. It is the Houston Astros on the road facing off against the Seattle Mariners. Brandon Bielak is going to be going for the Astros, but Bryce Miller is on the bump for the Mariners, and the Mariners are anywhere between minus 115 to minus 122 favorite, anywhere between even money and plus 110 is your number on the Houston Astros, and I feel like the Astros should be a slight favorite. I set them at a minus 117. I'm going to be willing to go with them. Now, Brandon Bielak, when he's been given opportunities at the big league level. He hasn't necessarily taken full advantage of them in recent seasons, but just watching the way that he came on in long relief a few days ago did leave me relatively impressed at the minor league level thus far this season. He was getting right around 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He was able to work on the walks because that's really what has been ailing Brandon Bielak whenever he's gotten an opportunity at the big league level. He's given out 4.1 walks per 9 innings at the minor league level this season. He had went from having 4.4 walks per 9 innings last season to 2.7 walks this year, and he's going up against a Seattle Mariners team that they just are stuck in the wilderness in terms of being able to move the line and get on base. Entering into Saturday night, the Seattle Mariners sitting at 218 as a collective. That is dead last in the big leagues, and Jarred Kelenic has honestly not been the issue. In recent years, he had been just a big giant flopperoni, but thus far this season, hitting nearly a 300, being able to supply 7 home runs. He's been solid there, and Teoscar Hernandez has been able to give you 7 home runs as well, but he, along with so many others, are hitting at 222 or lower. He joins Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, Tommy Lucella, Colton Wong, Taylor Trammell, AJ Pollock, all hitting a 222 or worse. You've got Eugenio Suarez, who's been able to give you about a 325 on base along Ty France, and it's been a rough lineup. Now, with the Seattle Mariners, they also are going to do a very good job of backing up their starter in Mr. Bryce Miller with a very good bullpen, as this bunch is a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA, and really both of these teams are 2 of the best bullpens you're going to find in the big leagues. The Houston Astros last year, they were number 1 in the league in terms of bullpen ERA, entered into yesterday number 5. The Mariners, they entered number 4 after being number 6 a season ago, so both of these teams, they're able to lock it down. As for the Houston Astros, Ryan Stanek has been a little bit more testy this year, but you've had so many guys be able to back up what they did a season ago, like Hector Neris, Rafael Montero, throw in there Phil Maton. All these guys have been able to do a solid job. Their closer, Ryan Presley, is very good, and for the Mariners, even though they've had some injuries, guys like Andres Munoz and company, Taylor Saucedo, Justin Topa, these are guys that have really stepped up for them to go along with what they already had. They are currently without Diego Castillo, which honestly is probably an advantage, but the big question is, what are you going to be able to get out of the young starter in Bryce Miller? Because with Miller, he started out the year at the minor league level, and he wasn't good at the minor league level in Double-A to begin the season. He had made 4 starts, was posting up north of 6 ERA. Now, if you did look at his 2022 numbers, was very good. He went from high A baseball all the way up to Double-A, and he had a 3.16 ERA, 11 punch-outs per 9 innings, but was giving up right around 3 walks per 9 innings. I've got more question marks when it comes to Miller rather than Bielak, because he's also going to be facing off against a better lineup. Even though the Astros have been a little bit slow going because they're without Jose Altuve, they're without Michael Brantley, you still have to fear Yordan Alvarez, who seems at like 800 with men in scoring position. I have no idea how, I have no idea why, but he's got those powers. You've got Kyle Tucker along Christian Jolks, weighing between about a 270 to 280, with Tucker providing a 375 on base, 6 home runs thus far this season. It has been a team that has been a little bit breath of power. Going into yesterday, 30 home runs across their first 32 games of the season. That's below average in the big leagues. Alex Bregman, off to one of his patented slow starts, hitting at 210 with 4 home runs thus far this season. And Jose Abreu has yet to hit a home run. And that has been very shocking, but Mauricio Dubon has been able to move the line as well. So I do think that the Astros, they are going to be able to get their bats online against a young guy in Bryce Miller that does have a little bit of a command issue. I do think that the Mariners as well, they're going to scratch across a few runs on Bielak, and keep in mind Seattle's going to play a lot more hitter-friendly because this is going to be a daytime game, so I semi-told an 8.7 look at the over, but with the Astros, I feel like they should be the favorite, set them at a minus 117, so looking at the Astros money line to go along this total over. 971, 972 on the betting board. The Baltimore Orioles are on the road facing off against the Atlanta Braves. Bryce Elder is going to be going for the Bravos, and Tyler Wells hopes to pitch. Wells for Baltimore, and Baltimore is anywhere between a plus 133 to a plus 143 underdog, and between minus 152 to a minus 165 is your number on Atlanta. 9.5 is your total. The under is between minus 110 to a minus 120. The over is anywhere between even and minus 110, and I did set my total at 8.7. I'm going to be looking at the under. Been very impressed by what I've been seeing out of young Bryce Elder thus far this season, as he has come out, done a really good job with his command, as he has given up right around 2.3 walks per 9 innings, 3 home runs allowed in 36 innings. I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression here. He's getting 8 strikeouts per 9 innings and rocking a $1.75 ERA, but by and large, against good and less than good competition, he has dominated it all. So I do think that is a very good sign there. Meanwhile, for Tyler Wells, he's been a better road pitcher than he has been a home pitcher throughout his career. You go back to his 2022 numbers, 4.79 home ERA compared to a 3.81 ERA on the road because he was giving up fewer home runs per 9 innings. It's always been relatively solid in terms of his command, even last year. About 2.5 walks per 9 innings to 6 walks across 35 innings this year. As a matter of fact, he's given up more home runs than walks this far this season, which can be a little bit of an issue because it's going up against an Atlanta Braves lineup that you've got all sorts of mashers. Entering into yesterday, you had a trio of guys with 9 home runs, only team in the big leagues that's able to say that. Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, along with Sean Murphy, and with Olson 365 on base, Murphy's providing a 440 on base. Travis d'Arnaud going down, you thought was going to hurt this team, but Murphy has been absolutely amazing. And then you've got other guys that just find a way to be able to move the line. Austin Riley, after a slow start to the season, he entered into yesterday with 6 home runs. I do think that he is going to be able to pick it up moving forward for this team. We saw what he was able to do during the summer months last year. Ronald Acuna Jr., a 444 on base. So you've got so many good bats for the Atlanta Braves. Meanwhile, for the Baltimore Orioles, this has been a top 8 team in terms of runs produced as well, with having the only duo in Cedric Mullins and Jorge Mateo, both exceeding 10 stolen bases thus far this season. You've got Ramon Urias, who's been able to provide about a 385 on base. Jorge Mateo, 6 home runs, hitting above 300. Ryan Mountcastle has been able to slug out 8 home runs. Adley Rutschman is providing north of a 400 on base. So you've got good balance across this lineup. And for the Baltimore Orioles, Keegan Aiken along Cianel Perez have seen a little bit of regression this year, but everyone else has really been able to do their job. Entered into Saturday 8th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. Yanier Cano, I believe, has yet to give up a run thus far this season. Danny Columbia is providing a sub-2.5 ERA. Mike Bauman, Brian Baker, these guys are able to give you multiple innings. And for the Atlanta Braves, relatively league average bullpen, right around 15th to 16th in terms of bullpen ERA. Michael Tonkin has been very good, though. Got guys longer in the tooth in Jesse Chavez along Kirby Yates that have been up and down to say the least, but now you've got Rossio Iglesias back in the fold. Dylan Lee has been able to do a solid job as well, so I do think that the Atlanta Braves should be able to get a good start out of Bryce Elder. I did set the Braves money line at a minus 156. If you're taking a look at the run line in this ordeal, it's anywhere between plus 118 and a plus 125, with the Braves needed at least a plus 123 to be able to take a shot. So I'm going to be looking at that plus 125 run line personally, and I did set my total at an 8.7, especially with this being such an early game following up a night game. This is a Peacock game that has first pitch at 11:35 a.m. Eastern. So I'm going to be taking a look at the under in this spot, and the Braves at a plus 125 on the run line. 973, 974 on the betting board. The Boston Red Sox hit the road to face off against the Philadelphia Phillies. Taijuan Walker is going for the Phils, and Tanner Houck is on the bum for Boston. And Boston, anywhere between a plus 105 to a plus 115 underdog, and anywhere between minus 118 to a minus 125. Your number on the Phillies, and total on this game is 9.5. Unders between minus 115 to a minus 125. The over is anywhere between minus 105 to a plus 105, and with Boston, I did set them as an underdog of plus 142. I'm going to be willing to back the Phillies. Phillies have done an amazing job of being able to get on base in general. The power has not really been there, but I do think that adding Bryce Harper back to the fold, that is really going to be able to help them out, as you've got Nick Castellanos, Brandon Marsh, Christian Pache, Bryson Stott, Omando Sosa, all guys that entered into yesterday, hitting above a 295, and then other guys like JT Realmuto, Alec Boehm, they're hitting about a 270. The big thing is, the only guy that entered into yesterday with north of 4 home runs was Kyle Schwarber with 7 home runs, and he's really the lone guy that has not been able to provide a lot of pop. Now with the Philadelphia Phillies, you've got an albatross known as this bullpen, as Jose Alvarado has been amazing for this team, but Sir Anthony Dominguez not having one of his best years, north of a 5 ERA. Entering into yesterday, Gregory Soto has been able to find it, and Andrew Vasquez has been solid. Why they employ Craig Kimbrell, I have absolutely no idea. The Boston Red Sox learned the hard way about that. And for the Red Sox, they actually entered into Saturday night in the top half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, 9th as a matter of fact. I don't think that this is going to be maintaining. They've got Zach Liddell on the bullpen. Richard Blyer, Ryan Brazier have north of 5 ERAs. John Schreiber is someone I do like, and they've got Chris Martin back, but Brandon Bernardino, he entered into yesterday having not given up a run all season long. I don't think that's going to be withstanding. And then you've got Tanner Houck, who's got a 5.34 ERA. Hasn't given up a lot of hard contact, and he never really has throughout his career. Can be a little bit wild, though. He has been giving up right around 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and has given up at least 3 runs at each out of his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, you got a guy in Taijuan Walker who's giving up quite a bit of contact in general. Swing and miss stuff is a tad bit better this year. He's been able to get 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. Recent years, though, he has been very lucky on balls in play. That has regressed. 7 home runs given up in 28 2/3 innings, and when you're walking north of 5 guys per 9 innings, that is a little bit of an issue, especially when you go up against the Boston Red Sox team that they entered into yesterday 3rd in the big leagues in terms of just sheer run production, as you've got a lot of guys that are able to move the line. Alex Verdugo, Masataka Yoshida both entered in yesterday, hitting a .315. These guys have gotten as hot as lava. All of a sudden, Connor Wong is able to hit about a .270. Justin Turner down for what? A .365 on base. Rafael Devers not really hitting for average, but 11 home runs as far as this season. But on the full, guys like Tristan Casas and company has been a little bit rough, but out of Boston Red Sox team that they are able to supply some boom. So I did set my total in this spot at a 9.3. Now that we're up to a 9.5, I do think the bookmakers are starting to adjust a little bit too much, because I do think that Taijuan Walker is going to be able to give a little bit of a better start here. So going to be taking a look at the under in this one. But with Taijuan Walker, I trusted him a little bit more than Tanner Houck, so I'm going to be willing to lay the number with the Phillies, willing to lay up to a -142 to go along with this total under 975, 976 on the betting board. It is the Toronto Blue Jays hit the road to face off against the Pittsburgh Pirates, as Ronci Contreras is going to be going for the Buccos, and Yusei Kikuchi is on the bump for Toronto, and Toronto is a -125 to a -135 favorite, anywhere between +110 to a +120 is your number on Pittsburgh. 9 is the total. The under is between -110 to a -120. The over then is any between even and -110. And if you're looking at that Blue Jays run line, you're only getting in a lot of places and between about a +115 to a +120. This is a circumstance where I'm actually looking a little bit more to take a run and a half with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I need at least a +120 to be able to take a shot here, but being able to get a run and a half at about a -135 or so on the Pittsburgh Pirates, that's my initial lean, unless we can get north of a +120, which was the opener in this one. But with the Pittsburgh Pirates, I do think that they're going to be able to do a solid job of being able to hang in this game, because it is a Toronto Blue Jays bullpen that has been all sorts of testy this season. For the Blue Jays, you've had Anthony Bass, Yimi Garcia, along Zach Pop, all provide north of a 4 ERA, so that's a little bit of an issue. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, entered into yesterday a top 10 team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Now, Jose Barrios actually provided a very good start for the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday, very shocking, and what's not shocking is the fact that the Toronto Blue Jays are continuing to move the line, and they just have tremendous hitters in general, as you have Vlad Guerrero Jr., along with Bo Bichette, Matt Chapman, all hitting at least a .310, and all these guys, they've been able to do a good job of going yard this season. With Bo Bichette, he's been able to give you 7 home runs. I believe that Vlad Guerrero Jr. is there as well, but Alejandro Kirk being able to provide north of a 4 on base, Kevin Kiermaier hitting at .275, that has been good for the team, and you know that someone like a George Springer, who's hitting at .215, Brandon Belt, who's hitting about a 200, these guys are going to be able to pick it up. Meanwhile, for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it's been very shocking to watch this offense, and we're starting to see some regression here, as Jack Swinitsky, Miguel Andujar, Brian Hayes, all these guys have now seen their batting averages dip below a .240. Topico Marcano has been hitting about a .240 as well, but Brian Reynolds, he's able to give you 5 bombs. He's hitting well north of a .300. Connor Joe has been able to move the line as well, but I do think that Ronci Contreras is going to be able to hold in there against Yusei Kikuchi, which for Kikuchi, what has been a big key for him is that he has actually dialed back his swing and miss stuff. As he has gotten more and more strikeouts in the big leagues, his walks go higher and higher, and last year he had north of 5 walks per 9 innings, had absolutely no command whatsoever on the road. He has seen his ERA go from north of 5 last year back to more around a more respectable 4 range this season, because he has been able to do a better job with regards to that command. Meanwhile, you've got Ronci Contreras, who is giving up 4.5 walks per 9 innings, but has allowed just 1 home run in 33 innings. Meanwhile, Kikuchi has allowed 8 of them. And for Ronci Contreras, I do think that he is starting to really come into his own. It's been a little bit wobbly for him in his big league career thus far, but 5 runs surrendered over the course of his last 3 starts. The walks are a little bit of an issue, but clearly has good raw stuff. So this is a circumstance where I need at least a +118 to be able to take a shot on the Pittsburgh Pirates, but being able to get right around a -135 to get a run and a half, that's where I'm looking right now, and it did set my total at 8.6, so here to 9, going to be taking a look at the under to go along the Pittsburgh Pirates getting a run and a half on the run line. 9.75, 977, 978 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers on the road facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals. Steven Matz is going to be going for the Cards. Alex Faedo is on the bump for Detroit. Detroit is anywhere between plus 160 and plus 170 underdogs, anywhere between minus 185 to a minus 195. Your number on St. Louis. 9 is your total. The over is between minus 110 to a minus 130. The under is anywhere between plus 110 and minus 110, and I did set my total at 9.3. Going to be taking a look at the over. The Detroit Tigers entered into this series dead last in the American League in terms of runs per game, but now the St. Louis Cardinals have allowed at least 5 runs in each out of their last 6 games, and they are 0-6 when Steven Matz takes a bump this year. It has been absolutely terrible to watch what they have been doing this far this season. And for Steven Matz, I just don't understand why he's currently employed on a big league roster, as he just has not been able to find it all season long. A little bit north of 3 walks per 9 innings, and this dates all the way back to 2016. He has given up at least 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, and I believe all but one of those seasons, as he's been giving up a whole bunch of hard contact just throughout the entirety of his career. Thus far this season, that has been withholding, as he has given up 6 home runs over the course of 31 innings. And for Faedo, he was given a few opportunities at the big league level last season, was not really able to seize them. In 12 starts, he had a 5.53 ERA, walks per 9 rate was a little bit all over the place, and you could tell that he was still trying to come into his own a little bit more in terms of the swing and miss stuff. Only about 7.5 punch-outs per 9 innings, but I am a little bit encouraged by what I saw at the minor league level this year out of him, as he's one of the better prospects that you're going to find in the Detroit Tigers system, especially with all the injuries that they've had to overcome. But 2.50 ERA, 9.5 strikeouts to 2 walks per 9 innings, and 5 starts this far this season at AAA Toledo, and is backed up by a bullpen that it's not great by any stretch of the imagination, because they did lose a lot of guys that were sort of those fulcrum guys from a season ago. Gregory Soto, along with Andrew Chafin, Joey Jimenez, guys like that, but you've had Jason Foley be able to supply a sub-2 ERA. Jose Cicerno is still relatively solid as well, and it's a St. Louis Cardinals bullpen that hasn't been doing a whole heck of a lot better themselves. The Cardinals are currently ranked 15th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. There's only about a 1/10 of a point separation between these two bullpens, as Ryan Helsley has not looked like the same guy that he was towards the beginning of the 2022 season. You've got Giovanni Gallegos, Genesis Cabrera, a pair of guys that I really do like, but when you get into some of these guys like Chris Stratton and company, that is not necessarily too terrific. And for the Cardinals, the issue with this team is not the offense. I recognize that you don't have a lot of guys that have really been able to exceed 3 home runs thus far this season, and Nolan Arenado certainly has been getting off to a rough start, as he's currently hitting at 241. He's supplied just 3 home runs thus far this season, while Paul Goldschmidt still provides right around a 4 on base, 4 home runs. Nolan Gorman is right now leading the way, by the way, with 7 bombs, hitting at 345 in terms of his on base, but just a lineup that is littered with guys that are able to move the line. In limited at-bats, Paul DeJong has looked relatively good. Lars Nootbaar is providing a 422 on base. When Jordan Walker was out there, he was doing solid. They actually optioned him down to AAA, which I do find to be a little bit befuddling there. But, I mean, by and large, it's been a lineup that has been just fine. And for the Detroit Tigers, that has been the issue for this team, because you really have only 2 guys, Gary Carpenter and Nick Maton, that will be able to provide any sort of power whatsoever. They've got 4 home runs each as the team, as a collective. They'll be able to supply 27 home runs, but now you're getting Riley Green on base, as he's been able to about a 270. Matt Fearling has been able to move the line. Andy Ibanez is a young infielder for the team that's hitting right around 275. And Javi Baez, after he got called out for not hustling to say the least, maybe that's exactly what this team needed, because ever since then, this Detroit Tigers team has gotten on a little bit of a run. They've now won 5 straight games, and in the last 15 days, Javi Baez is actually hitting a 350 with all 3 of his home runs coming in that time span. So I take a look at the Detroit Tigers, and they're getting the St. Louis Cardinals at just the right time. I was willing to take anything north of plus 160 with the Detroit Tigers. No faith whatsoever in here in Steven Matz, who has just continued to supply that 6.39 ERA and give up 4.5 walks per 9 innings. So going to be taking a look at Detroit on the money line, set my total at 9.3. So looking at the 9 over, and we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the betting board. It is the Cincinnati Reds. Yes, we are on to Cincinnati, and they play us to the Chicago White Sox. Michael Kopech is going to be going for the Sox, and Graham Ashcraft on the bump for Cincinnati. 9 is the total. The over is anywhere between minus 115 to even money. Unders between minus 105 to minus 120 with the Reds. They are anywhere between minus 116 to minus 125 favorites, and between plus 105 to plus 110 is your number on the White Sox. And I set the Reds at a minus 146. I'm going to be willing to take them on the money line. Chicago White Sox entered into yesterday second worst in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, and for Michael Kopech, he just has not been able to keep the ball in the yard all season long, as he has supplied 8 home runs in 31 2/3 innings, and this is compounded by the fact that his walks per 9 rate is hovering right around 6. His strikeout numbers are back up. He's getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but when you give up that many walks and that many home runs, it really does not matter. Meanwhile, Graham Ashcraft, despite the fact that Cincinnati is one of the biggest bandbox ballparks that you're going to find in the big leagues, he's allowed just 1 home run in 36 innings thus far this season. Walks are up. He's getting right around 4 walks per 9 innings after that was more around 2.6, 2.7 last season. Swing and miss stuff still isn't great. It's up a little bit from last year, but he's still right around 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but has really done a nice job of being able to induce soft contact. Now, the one thing that is ailing the Reds is that they don't have any power in this lineup. 22 home runs in their first 32 games of the season, with nobody hitting north of 3 home runs. Now, they didn't have a single guy returning from last year that had north of 12 home runs to start out with, but you do have guys who are able to get on base for the team, as TJ Friedel, along Nick Senzel, Henry Ramos, all entered into yesterday, between about a 350 to a 370 in terms of their on base. Heather Stevenson is in that fold as well. Jonathan India, 375 on base. He's been able to do a good job of moving the line. And for the Cincinnati Reds, their bullpen is in the top 13 in terms of ERA. Now, they are missing Fernando Cruz. He was one of their better pieces last season, but Alexis Diaz in his 2 seasons at the big leagues, sub 250 ERA. Lucas Sims, Alex Young, sub 3 ERAs out of them. Casey Lagamina has been able to do a solid job. Meanwhile, for the White Sox, Gregory Santos has been legitimately your top bullpen guy. You've been able to get a little bit of production out of Keenan Middleton, but guys like Aaron Bummer, Kendall Graveman, these guys that you know and love, Reynaldo Lopez, all providing north of a 5 ERA, and has been absolutely atrocious for this bunch. Now, the good news for the White Sox, they do get back into the fold Tim Anderson, and they badly need him, but this is a White Sox team as a collective. They're in the bottom 8 in terms of batting average. They really don't take their base on the road. They're a bottom 5 team in terms of on-base percentage. They do have Luis Robert, who's been able to do a relatively solid job. He entered into yesterday with 7 home runs. He's now hitting about a 250 for this bunch, but with Anderson, he has not looked like himself since coming back. You got Ansel Alberto, Sebi Zavala, Elvis Andrews, lying below the Mendoza line of 200. He has Monty Grandal, Andrew Benintendi being able to give you a little bit of on-base has been helping out a tad, but this is not a White Sox team that necessarily is full of a bunch of thumpers as well. So I did set my total at 8.8. I do think that Graham Ashcraft going to do a good job tying up the Chicago White Sox team. Now, with the Reds, they do average a little bit north of 5 runs per game at home compared to about 3.4 on the road, but they're not a team that necessarily goes deep. So I do think that Kopech is going to be in for a little bit of better start here, but he just still has been giving up a lot of walks, which I think is going to doom him, especially with his bullpen on tap. So set my total at an 8.8, looking at the under, and willing to take the Reds on the money line as I set them at a minus 146, and that will wrap things up for the Sunday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the Easton family of podcasts. Big thanks to Jovan Alford over at Sporting News for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways to offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at @GNet_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, the mean does not matter, so as per usual, please just send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season. That means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.